Hey, welcome back everyone. Rob Marzullo here from Ram Studio Comics, and today's video I'm just going to be inking on the Blackstone comic, but also I want to talk to you about some tips for self-promotion. So I had a few people ask, like, what are some of the ways that you promote your content and get stuff out there? And I just figured I would share a couple tips for that. There's obviously a lot that goes into self-promotion, and artists always I think shy away from this because it's a sticky topic and it's not always our best bag of tricks. We'd rather just sit here and create and draw and all that. But a big part of the internet world and being an artist these days is being able to effectively market yourself. So I've done other videos on it in the past, but I've got a few other tips that I wanted to share that I've learned by promoting. I do obviously my book, Learn to Draw Action Heroes. I've been marketing and promoting that. Getting ready to actually do my first book signing in Barnes & Noble. Pretty happy about that. Hopefully that'll lead to more. And that's more the legwork, the footwork, or whatever you want to call it, door to door almost. And I'll talk a little bit about that as well. But then there's the other parts of it where it's just like how you effectively share your work and get it out there so that it doesn't come across as cheesy or overly self-promoted, which it's a pretty tough balancing act because you have to promote yourself, but then if you overdo it or it's a one-directional relationship, me, then nobody's going to want to watch that or listen to you, and they're going to lose interest in you, I think. So the first thing, I think the best way to promote yourself is to solve a problem. Okay, at least this is the way it is with informational products. Like when I teach courses, the best way to get people to acknowledge the course is to help them in some area that they're facing. And this could be said to be done with your art as well, and I'll touch on that. But essentially, if you help somebody to figure out a problem, they're going to reciprocate. They're going to either say thank you or thumbs up, or they might take it a step further and say, this helps so much. I want to know more about this person. And then that's when you may or may not make a sale on one of your digital products, whether it be, for me, it's courses and custom brushes. So if you watch the channel, you probably already know that. And that's how I pay my living now. That's how I sit here and dedicate to my Blackstone comic, because nobody pays me to draw Blackstone. So that was my way to kind of, build my own bridge to the goal that I'm after. All right, so the other thing is this. When you just share your content, it's okay to just share your content, but you have to think about it like somebody on the outside viewing your content. And if you just go, hey, here's my stuff, hope you dig it, that's fine. A lot of people will still gravitate because it's art and they can appreciate the visual aspect of it. But if you think about it a little bit deeper and a little bit more like the person on the other end of the spectrum, then you might come up with some ideas on how you can better put that out there. For instance, if you're trying to get somebody to your comic, for instance, right? Probably the best way is to share the product and say, hey, here's a free glimpse into the work. I'm going to show off a few free samples of the book or whatever, So the other thing that works out really well in marketing at almost anything is to give away something for free, especially if you're trying to sell it. But even if you're just trying to build an audience, the best way is to give away something for free. Think of like Bill Gates, right? One of the things that Bill Gates did, if not the most influential thing that he did to launch himself and Windows and all that, there's a lot of other backstory to this. I'm not going to get into all that, but he was a marketer. More than anything else, I think he was just good at marketing. And he gave away Windows to everybody. Everybody that was building PCs, he gave them free access to Windows. And forgive me if I slaughter this. I mean, I'm not trying to be all extra factual about it. I'm just trying to give you the gist of what made it work. Gave it away for free to everybody, got everybody on board, and then when they wanted it, revisions for it and updates and things like that, and they got all these customers already on board, they said, well, he's like, nah, now I got to charge you. The first one was for free. So, and I'm not saying, you got to be all shady about it or something. I don't know that he did it in a shady way. I don't know. I mean, whenever you get something for free, you kind of have to suspect that there might be a little catch or something. I always do anyways, because that's just the way, marketing goes a lot of times, and people pushing products, they'll get you for free and they'll say, hey, do you mind giving us your email to get it or whatever. And if you're really interested in the product, that's fine. And that's really what you want anyway. So if you get all these people that are like, well, I don't want to give you my email, I just want the free thing, or they get it and they never return, that's fine. Those weren't your customers anyways. Those weren't your true fans, diehard fans, and they're not going to want to see you succeed later anyways. You just want the people that really like your stuff enough to say, yeah, I'll buy your book, or yeah, I'll support you on Patreon, or whatever it is you're doing, your next Kickstarter, I'll be there. Can't wait for your next product. Those are the people you're looking for, and they're looking for you. They'll tell you, they'll say when you come out with something, hey, I really enjoyed that. You helped me figure something out. It was amazing. My kids struggle with that, and then you helped them to draw faces. I've gotten comments like that, and it's just like, wow, that's awesome. Like it's not, I'm not saving anybody's life, but it's making somebody happy, and that makes me happy. So again, that's the kind of, you got to look at it as a flip coin. Like you got to be on the other end of that spectrum. And if it still makes sense to you, then that's a good deal. If it doesn't make sense to you, then it's not a good deal. You're doing something that you wouldn't be happy with, so why would you put it out there? Okay, so that's pretty much kind of like number 2. You can use free items to propel yourself forward, whether you capture an email or you just get a fan and they start following your work. That's all it really boils down to anyways. You're basically just getting somebody that likes your work enough to say, yeah, I'll be around when you make something else. Maybe I'll check it out. Maybe I won't. That's the best you can hope from anybody in a customer relationship. Like when I had a business for years, not everybody stuck around. Some people I wouldn't see for years, all of a sudden they pop back in. Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the last time, but you did good here and I'm going to give you another shot. And then they became a customer for years on end. You just never know. It's just, you can't make everybody happy all the time. You just have to know in your heart you're doing the right thing, and you'll make enough people happy to keep sustaining what you do. Okay, so now for the next one. Okay, number 3 is make products, whatever it is, your art, your digital product, whatever it is that you're passionate about. We talked about this plenty too, and people are like, well, duh, Rob, of course. I mean, why would I do it if I wasn't passionate about it? You'd be amazed. And a lot of people, they get in this habit of, and I've done it too, because it's kind of this thing where you look around and you go, what's working for people, right? And it's okay to look at that, but you got to make sure that doesn't sway you from what you're wanting to do. For instance, even with the course content and the brushes that I make, I get pretty heavy into that. I have to, because that's what pays the bills. But I have to remember that stuff needs to bring me back to the Blackstone comic. This is what I want to be doing. If somebody was to walk up and say, look, I'm going to pay you to do the Blackstone comic right now, I guarantee you, if it was enough, I would drop everything else I'm doing, just because that's really where my heart is. But I also have to be aware of what other things work and what people want, what the consumer wants, what fans want. They want to see work process. They might pick up the Blackstone comic and they might be a big fan of it, but will enough people adopt it and buy it to where I can sit around and draw and provide for my family? Not at this point, so I have to do the other content. But the other thing is to not let that sway you so much to where you're now not doing anything resemblant of what your goals are. Okay, so for instance, when I started doing storyboards, don't get me wrong, storyboards are an amazing way to make money. Some of those jobs were huge. It is kind of feast or famine, which I didn't like, but when they came in big. I mean, I don't want to divulge numbers, but I had some pretty big jobs. And I've seen people do some massive jobs. But the thing is that there's also a lot of wait around time. And then it gets hot, and then it's not. So what happens there is you have to be really fast, and you have to really take shortcuts and dumb down quality in certain areas and be okay with that. And it was a really tough bullet for me to bite. But still a fantastic business. Lots of people make a substantial income off storyboarding. But my point is that I started to see that it consumed more time. I wasn't able to share as much of my own content, and then I wasn't able to work on the comic, and ultimately I felt like I was sacrificing my own goals to make a living, which is just part of life. I mean, that does happen, right? It's like if I had to choose between providing for my family or just being happy, I'm sorry, I'm going to take providing for my family. Now, if I can get a nice little mix of the two, then I'm going to be really happy, and that's what I'm after. So that's what you see me doing here. I'm trying to make it where I can develop products and still draw and be an artist that I've always set out to be. So what I'm getting at is it's okay to study what works for other people, but don't let that compromise what you're passionate about. You want to illustrate or create digital product, whatever your end goal is. You want to do what you're passionate about, and this is why the passion that you have for doing something is like a fire. It's like this self-sustaining fire inside you, and that's why you're so excited to do it. That's why you're passionate about it, because you're like, whoa, every time I do this, I get pumped. Ideas are flying around, and I'm just, I'm loving every second of it, whatever. It's like whatever your idea of being passionate about something is. But that right there is something that other people will see in your work, they'll gravitate towards, and they'll want to support, or they'll want to see more of it. If you're just doing what you think everybody else wants, that's okay, I guess, if you can do it effectively, but there's a good chance that you might run out of energy for it. Like, that's kind of how I felt about storyboards. I was doing it, I was learning it, I was making it happen because I'm an artist and I love to draw, and I was drawing, but I just, the fire inside me was dying out for it really quick, and I'm just like, this isn't me, I'm not saying I won't ever do it again. Good job comes my way, I'll knock it out, but to make that my day-to-day routine I wasn't feeling it. And I kept looking back at my comic and going, God, if I could just figure out a way to make money with my comic, then I would be happy, but I can't seem to make enough selling comic books, And then that's where it led me to do the digital products. Now, the beautiful thing about the digital products is they keep selling after you make one, so they're kind of like the self-sustaining income. Not so much. I mean, you still have to answer questions. You got to take care of people. It doesn't just continually bring in money till you die. This doesn't work like that. Almost, I would say nothing does really effectively in the world. But essentially, it does keep developing income as long as it's viable in the market, and you can keep going. So I can make some products, and then I can jump over to my Blackstone comic. And then they kind of go hand in hand, especially like with the new book I did, because it's how to draw a comic. So I've made sure that everything that I've made digitally ties in with what I want to be doing, and that's comic and illustration, and I like teaching people how to draw. That's what, if you've watched the channel, that's what led to all this. So it made sense. It wasn't, and even storyboarding made sense because it was tied in to me drawing and being an artist. It just wasn't tied in to my end result of drawing my Blackstone comic or developing my own concepts. So again, do what you're passionate about, because the passion will fuel you, excuse me, and I can't talk today. And then other people will see what you're doing. They'll be excited about it. They'll want to know more. So again, it's one of those things where, did that really need to be on the list of things? Maybe not. It should be a no-brainer. But I'll tell you what, I've seen a lot of people, I've even seen comments on the channel where someone said, well, here's how you make money with art. You do this, you do this, you do that. And you could tell they're reading a list that they got from somebody else and that they've deemed as being the right way to do it. There's no right or wrong way. There's just compromise, I think. It's like, how much do you compromise what you really want in life to get to where you think you should be going? There's no right or wrong. So that's was that 3 or 4? I'm losing count here. All right, so the next one. Okay, so number 4, release your content, whatever you're making, your comic, your digital products, again, kind of that whole bag of kittens, right? Whatever it is you're doing, release it on a timely schedule, okay? And I can't stress this one enough, and again, this is back to that kind of no-brainer thing, I would think, but I'm guilty of it. I know that I've had to make compromises, and I haven't released as many pages and books of the Blackstone comic anywhere near what I would need to develop a true audience. To do comics, even in the independent sector, if you don't release a book every other month, good luck. I mean, I know books that come out 4 times a year, so I guess that's every 3 months. But that's got to be some diehard fans, and they understand that you're doing it independently and things, you got to work and do other things to pay the bills. And that's what I've had to do. But you can't release a book like every other year and hope to develop an audience. And every 3 years, I mean, that's just crazy. But hopefully now with the way that I've structured everything, I'll be able to really make up for that and develop the audience. So when you release your content is almost just as important as the quality of the content. A lot of people will say, for instance, they'll say, oh man, I can draw better than so-and-so. I've seen their books from Marvel or DC, and oh man, I draw better than that. Maybe you do. but how quickly do you do it? You know, they're putting out a book a month, maybe two. I mean, they might be doing a book and a few covers. Chances are they are. So, you know, when you start thinking of it that way, how quick are you really? You know, we can all sit around doing amazing pinup. I mean, that's one thing, but conforming to a schedule and being reliable and being that hardworking cog in the machine, that's a tough act to follow, and that's where you really got to learn about yourself. But that's also where you got to be very aware of what you're producing and how you produce it and the way you deliver it to the fan, because if not, they're only gonna get so involved with you. You know, it's like you wouldn't watch a TV show that even if it was this amazing TV show, you know, Avengers had their own TV show, right? And it was just all the star actors in a TV show. You'd watch that, right? But would you watch it whenever they felt like coming out? You know, and would you watch it if they were like, I mean, I guess you would. It's probably a bad analogy. But you know, you wouldn't invest as much to it. You need a set schedule. Now, if they came on every Friday night, then it would be the reviews and the ratings would go through the roof, is what I'm getting at. But again, that was probably a bad example because they, you know, whenever they produce a movie, I'm there and I don't know when it's coming out. But to get a real following, to get something going, you need a set schedule. Very important. Any of the marketing campaigns that I've studied from, the YouTube seminars and things like that, they all touch on this. So I want to share that with you. It's very, very important. So schedule is essential. Okay, so now for number 5. Number 5 is back to kind of what I touched on earlier, and I said, you know, hey, I got a book signing at Barnes & Noble, right? I'm very excited about that. This is the first book that I've had published other than my own comic in years, so very pumped about it. And just so you know, you can get that on Amazon. It's Learn to Draw Action Heroes. I'll make sure there's a link in the description box below. And if you do decide to get a copy, I'd love to know what you thought about it by leaving a review on Amazon, so that helps me to do better with the content that I bring in the future. And then it also helps other people know, is this a good book? You know, what you really thought about it. So keep that in mind for me. But the part I want to talk to you about is the signing at Barnes & Noble. I did that. I called them. I said, hey, you know, do you have any of this book? You know, I felt really selfish doing this, but I had to figure it out. I didn't want to ask them to do a book signing right away. I probably still would have, but I wanted to know that they had the book, and they did, to my surprise. And it wasn't far from where I live, so I went and checked it out. And it was surreal. You know, it was like, oh wow, my book is on the end cap of Barnes. It was on the end cap too, which they told me was a pretty big deal. I don't know if it is, but they were nice enough to say that to me. So there it was on the end cap, and I was I was a kid in a candy store, right? Still can't believe it's real. I've got to pinch myself. So, but I immediately thought, you know what? I need to push this. I need to get behind it. When I had a business, I had to go door to door and do sales. I had to walk into doors and you know, knock on the door, go in the door and say, hey, do you need any signs or graphics? I'm your guy. Tell you, it took an extreme amount of courage on my part. I'm more of an introvert. I'm not as social. I can be social, but I'm introvert in nature, you know. So I had to break that and say, no, I got to be successful for for my future, for my family's future. I got to do this stuff. You know, it's not easy, but I got to do it. So kicking in doors, or maybe that's a little bit strong, knocking on doors and introducing yourself still works in today's age. I mean, obviously with digital art, there's a lot of, or the internet, things like that, there's a lot of online marketing things that you do, but it's still very prevalent to you know, shake hands and kiss babies. So what you got to do is say, okay, like with the book signing, I was like, could I come in and maybe demonstrate? Or at first I said, you know, could I just do a book signing there? And they were like, you know, they came back with all these ideas and were so excited that I had offered to do this. And they're like, we'll buy a bunch of your books, and you can come in and do a demonstration for the kids. And I was kind of thinking, okay, wait a second, I didn't really think of that, but it was cool. You know, I'm like, hey, I'll do it. You know, I did caricatures at parties for years. I'm sure I could demonstrate how to draw a superhero in front of some kids, and you know, maybe their parents will buy them a book. Who knows? I don't know. But the fact is that I'm going to put the best foot forward and get that done. Now, there's a lot. You don't have to do what I'm saying there. I'm just giving you an example of what's working for me. obviously because that's what I can relate to. But the things that you can do, if you've got a new book, you do comic conventions. You can go to a local library. You could talk to people there. You could find a local comic book store and see if they'll let you set up a table in the front and just sketch. You don't, if you're more introvert, I know some of us get pretty introverted, and you don't have to greet everybody at the door. In fact, some people probably will shy away from that. One of the things that you'll learn at comic conventions is you can kind of gauge the way that people interact with other people. Watch some of the artists. A lot of them will draw and they'll wait for the person to get kind of in their spider web, close enough, and they'll say, "Hey, what's up? How you doing? Can I help you with something? Or what are you interested in?" And then they'll ignite the conversation that way. But they know by the body language and the, how that person is, if they're approachable. Now, not every time. Some people, you talk to them, they run the other direction. It's just the way it is. They wanted to just watch. And that's fine too. You gauge that. You learn that about yourself and about others. But the fact is that if you don't really get out there and try, you won't know. Like if I wouldn't have called the manager at Barnes & Noble and had the courage to say any of this, I would have just never known. And I would have never facilitated those additional book sales or whatever. I'm like this. If it works and it does well, I'm going to do the next one and the next one. Even if it doesn't do really well, I'll probably do the next few. If it just repeatedly doesn't do well, I'll look for something else. But I won't, I don't give up real quick, and I try, I test and repeat, I guess. So that's another one. And there's lots of ways you can do that. Again, it's comic book shops. I don't know about libraries. I just kind of threw that out there, but you could try it. You want to think anything book related. If you're doing digital products, you might think, well, could I even really do those places? Comic conventions, definitely. You could still do every bit of what you do with your digital products there. You could even teach, you could offer to teach classes at a college. Everybody thinks that you have to be this professor to go to a college and teach, and that's not the way it is. I taught classes at a local goodness, what was it called? Skill Center. I was going to say Skillshare because I teach classes on there now, but yeah, Skill Center. And it was just it was actually the coolest thing in the world. I didn't know about it growing up. I don't know how. But one day I found out about it, and I went in there and said, "Hey, I do caricatures and artwork. I would love to show some of the students if you ever had a need for it." And actually, they paid me to do that. But that's not even my goal. What I'm saying here, you could do that just to develop your audience. Because some of these kids were like, "Wow, this was so cool. I didn't even know this was a thing. And I love to draw." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's a great way to get your art out there and to meet people and derive income and things like that." So there's lots of ways. Don't think that just because everything's went internet that you can't still beat the streets, because you can. It's just like music label guys. What do? They immediately get an album, they run around, they push that album. You got to think that way about anything you do. You got to have that aggressive nature about you. Don't let your introvert characteristics hold you back from being that social butterfly, because sometimes you need to do that, or I wouldn't even say sometimes, you need to do that, at least to a certain level, to where you can get your stuff out there. Now, once you've got an audience, you can sit behind the computer and you can just kind of manage your audience, I guess. But that's, if you want growth, if you want real growth, you're going to have to do some of these things. I'll try to think of some more. I'll approach them in different videos. Hopefully this has been informative for you and fun. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I'll make sure to have links to everything I talked about, the book and the Udemy courses and things like that, Skillshare, if you want to check any of those out. They'll be in the description box below. So thanks very much for tuning in. As always, keep drawing, keep having fun, and I will talk to you soon.